All right, we're here at my outdoor worm bin, and we have a really fun one for you because last time we were in here, we put in a whole acorn squash. And 2 times ago, about 30 days ago, we put in some corn husks that were still there last time. I want to check on them. And then we also put in some pine needles. So I want to see how those are doing. And then finally, we've got some really unusual food that we're going to feed them. And some of it is coming from my saltwater fish tank. So stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and dive in. And oh my gosh, I mean, I barely went over the top and there's worms right there. So let's see if they have any of that acorn squash left over. It does feel mushy down there. And oh yeah, there are all the seeds. I was wondering if we were going to be left with a ton of seeds. And 15 days. Oh, I am very scared. I am very scared. Ooh, no smell yet. The executive producer may smell it before I do, but it did heat up just a little bit. It was just warm to the touch when I came in here. So we did put some ice cubes on it to try and cool it down, which I love to be able to do in this bin because it drains out the bottom because it's just some fabric pots. But the worms clearly are loving it, and they took care of a great portion of it. It looks to me it's just kind of that center part. Now I am feeling the pine needle, so as I go way under, I'm just going to turn it over here and see how all that did. And oh yeah, sure enough, they don't look like they've gotten broken down at all, and some of the worms are all in between them, but I'm not giving up. I had a lot of great comments saying how different people have tried them in their worm bins and they just take forever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep putting them in here, but I'm going to put just a little bits at a time, and maybe over time I will slowly get them to break down and constantly adding new bedding just to have some more natural bedding, because in my yard I have mostly pine trees and palm trees. So I am starting to smell just a little bit of a whiff, but nothing too bad. And for me, that was kind of expected. I mean, that was a lot of acorn squash. It was whole. I did put some knife marks in it to try and give entryways, but putting something like that, a whole melon, a whole gourd in, is something you don't really want to do if you don't have that many worms. I have about 4,000 to 5,000 worms in here, so it was just a little experiment for me. But check it out. I mean, there's lots of little ones, lots of medium-sized ones, and lots of big ones in here. So they clearly ate the other stuff, which was broccoli and tomato, and I think we put some banana peels in here. So they have turned their attention to this mess right here in the middle. And check out these castings. I mean, they are beautiful. Now, I didn't harvest today. I usually harvest every time I feed. And I didn't this time because this bin is really shallow right now. It is a 20-gallon bin, and I fold it in half when I do these videos. And look, this is my fingers at the bottom and my thumb is right at the top. And it's probably only a quarter full. So what we're going to do is put a lot of shredded cardboard in here to try and boost the volume, and we're going to give them a pretty big feeding. So let me kind of dig around here and see if we can find any other of our long-term stuff like this mango seed. And I don't know if they've broken in here. Oh, there we go. Let's see what we got. See if any worms have made it, and it doesn't look like they have. So this mango seed was put in with a lot of flesh on it. First thing they do is strip the flesh out, and then they try and make their way in between. And I have just done that for them. So I expect next time we check on this is going to be full of worms, and they are going to snack on this absolutely delicious cotyledon that we have in here. All right, let's keep looking. We've got our pumpkin stem that's been in here forever, probably since last Halloween. It's not really budging, and I think I found a sticker, but then I lost it. There we go. Here's a sticker from an avocado. I sometimes forget to take them off, and if I do, no problem, because the worms eat all around them. So we take that out and keep digging over here. Check that out. Lots of worms. It's also more moist in the center than it is on the edges. And that typically happens in the summer for me because the sides of this 20-gallon pot can also help wick out the moisture. But it rains a lot right here in Florida during this time, so the moisture also comes in from the bottom. And check out that worm ball. Lots of beautiful worms right here. I'm just going to pause and let's do a little time lapse of them. Lots of great babies in there, and during the summertime in my outdoor bins, I definitely see a lot more breeding than I do in the winter. In my indoor bins, it seems to be the same kind of breeding all throughout, and this bin, because I can keep putting more and more stuff in it and then I harvest it out, I think the worms continue to populate, whereas I think my vermi hut, one of my indoor bins, is probably at its carrying capacity, where it's not going to produce any more worms, or the amount of worms that die off also is the amount that get replaced. But I still find cocoons in in there. And then my tiny worm bin, I harvest the whole thing out, so we always count those out and see how many are in there. And then my urban worm bag is the one that is growing its population really quickly. And again, check it out. They are really swarming around that acorn squash. So I would say that my worms are pretty hungry and they are going to be ready for a big feeding. So let me go ahead and aerate the rest of the bin and dig around, and then we'll set up for our next feeding. All right, we got a little frog here, so I'm going to go off camera for a second. Oh, shoot. Oh, no. Where'd he go? Oh, they love to hide out in here when they're babies. Disaster averted. So first thing I'm gonna do is add a bunch of bedding. Go some shredded cardboard, and then let's kind of put some of this stuff in here, and then I think I'll add some more shredded cardboard on top of that as well. I always like to put my old stuff in so that some of the liquid from the new stuff can kind of saturate it and help it digest. So wow, it's a little bit more than I thought. These pine needles, I can see, are going to get a little bit of a tangly mess as we go on, but I am going to keep doing it. All right, a little bit more shredded cardboard. I don't mind putting it all around. So here we go. We've got some more pine needles in there. And this time, I'm even going to add some palm fronds, and I'm going to break them up. I think they'll do probably a little bit better than the pine needles do. But again, that's kind of what I'm dealt with here in my yard, is these two types of trees. And now for what I'm really excited about. This right here is from my saltwater aquarium. It's called Chaeto, and it's a type of microalgae that I keep in my refugium, which is kind of like a little fish tank underneath the saltwater fish tank. And what it does is, as it grows, it consumes excess nutrients like phosphates and nitrates, and it stores them in the macroalgae, and then you just remove that as the macroalgae grows, and that helps to remove the excess nutrients from the fish tank, which helps your corals grow and your fish grow, etc. So we're going to give it a try. This I just pulled from the tank today, and I rinsed it out real well, and this I pulled about a week ago and rinsed and let it dry. So I'm just putting kind of small quantities because it is from salt water. Even though I rinsed it, it probably has some more salt in it. So salt is one of the things you need to be careful with in your worm bins. And then here is the next fun food that we're going to feed them. This is some pitted olives that my mom gave me. So I am not sure if I have ever fed olives, but we're going to go ahead and put some in there. And they're pitted, so obviously we're going to find some seeds in here as we go along. So two very interesting, unique foods that I've never ever fed my worm bins before. And this macroalgae here is going to be real interesting to me because now I know it's something I can put into my worm bins if they like it when I check on it next feeding. So in addition to that food, I've got some of their regular food here, and I'm just going to dump a bunch of it in. And again, I always try and remind folks that I've got 4,000 to 5,000 worms in here, so this is just an enormous feeding for this bin. And if you have fewer number of worms, and especially if your worm bin is just brand new, you don't want to put this much food. This bin is somewhere around 3 years old, and it has so many microbes. It's well seasoned. The worms have been in here for a while, and it's just a great ecosystem. So I can put this much food in. And in fact, I can put more, and I'm going to give them some of their favorite, which is some melons. I think, if I can get it out. We've got some watermelon and we've got some pineapple. Now, I do not mind feeding pineapple, but I don't think I want to feed this much at once. So your worms will eat just about any food, but you want to have it in moderation. If it's foods like pineapple or citrus peel or onions, things like that. So we want to keep that in mind when we're feeding. Next, we're going to go ahead and add some worm chow, and you may notice that I have not concentrated this in the middle as much as I sometimes do. I've spread out just a little bit this food that I've fed, and that's because I don't want to get it heated up as we're in the middle of summer here. This worm chow is just expired grains from my pantry. Next, we're going to go in with some coffee grounds, spent coffee grounds and tea grounds, and it's just another food source for them and a way for me to get the nutrients from the coffee grounds into my garden. And then finally, a worm favorite, we've got some eggshell grit, and as I put this in, you'll notice at my next feeding, and certainly at this feeding, you never see it piled up because the worms go for the grit right away while they're eating. And they use that grit in their gizzard gizzards to aid in their digestion to kind of make the food smaller for them. So finally, we're going to top this off with a bunch of shredded cardboard. And I have access to a lot of cardboard boxes, so I like to dispose of them in my worm bins. And if you look, the shreds are teeny tiny. That's because I have a 12-sheet cross-cut micro shredder. And the 12 sheet allows you to put cardboard in. The cross-cut, and especially the micro, is what makes it so small. So I absolutely love my shredder. And I've got affiliate links if you're interested to see how much they cost. And I actually have all my worm equipment on those affiliate links too. They're in the pinned comments and in the description. So let's do our best to kind of bury from the side up. And again, I'm just impressed with how many worms are in this bin. Even from the edges here, the worms are all full up in these castings. And we are definitely going to harvest the next time that we're in here because I skipped it this time. And during the summer, we really are able to blow through food and bedding because the worms are so hungry. So let's put some more dry bedding in and then even more. And come to think of it, I probably should have poured it in. So my next step after we wrap up things here is I'm going to go ahead and water this in. I have a rain barrel that catches water. And then I fill my watering can and use that watering can to just kind of soak this in. And I may even come in the next couple of days and do that again. So I hope you're all having a great day. I hope your worm bins are doing well. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now. Do you want to take them?
No.
Please.
Sling it.
No, it's got to go somewhere. Here, put it in the cup and then you fling it outside, okay? Run.